lots of noise. I
to
can fix that actually. Oh no, there we go.
She's switching onto her laptop.
There we go. Good afternoon, everyone. We just wanted to make sure you are very awake for our afternoon session here. We have people piling into the room, so as you do, we're just going to take a couple of seconds to let that happen. And I'm going to put a poll up on the screen. My name is Mark. I am your host today. If you were here with us yesterday, then you already know who I am, and you know why I have this thing in my head. And you know it's been a while since I got a haircut. How long has it been? 111 days, 121 days, 131 days, or 141 days? And perhaps a better question is, how long will it be? I have no idea.
Oh, we can't vote. Darn.
Oh, you guys can't vote. My co-hosts, co-presenters cannot vote. You can vote out loud if you have any ideas. Any guesses?
131.
131, Shannon?
Say 141 days.
141, Christy?
Hey, 111.
111. And can the panelists, can you see the results?
I don't know.
Yet.
Okay. So I can see the results as they populate on the screen. We still have more people coming in the room. So we're going to let that proceed for another minute or two here. Judging by the answers I see coming up so far, I have a feeling that many of the people here today were either here yesterday or are very good at guessing, or really know hair length quite well and know how long my hair was when I got it cut the first time. So we're gonna pull that one to a close in about 3 seconds here. So last chance to opine on my hair, and away that goes. And there you can see 65% of you think it's been 131 days, and you're correct. It has been since the 28th of February since I got my hair cut. It has looked worse in those 131 days than it does today.
I like it.
I live into it. I'm like, thank you. I'll hold on to it for a while. By the time, I don't know how much time do we have left? Another 60 days or so. So we'll be close to 200 days by the time the students arrive. Yeah. Assuming I don't have to have too many Zoom chats with my family, because eventually I think my mother might have something to say about it. I have one more poll as we wait for the remainder. I don't know, how do I get that poll up? I have to find it. I've got one more question for you before we launch into this. So this is about, well, it's about a lot of things. I'll tell you about what it's about later. So Claude de Bellefeuille is one of 2 Canadian parliamentarians with 5 of the same letter in her name. That letter is L. What letter appears 5 times in the name of another Canadian MP? So it only happens in one other Canadian MP's name. So is it J, 5 J's? Is it 5 K's? Is it 5 Q's? Is it 5 W's? Is it 5 X's? Or is it 5 Z's? You don't have to be shy with your answers, people. I can see them coming in very slowly. I can see my fellow panelists thinking about this question as well.
My brain is blanking so hard.
Well, I don't expect anybody to know this. I only found out so that I could provide this little piece of something to this meeting, to this event.
I feel like it's not Q.
Feel like it's not Q. We're talking through the logic now. So maybe not Q. What else do we think?
Well, if it's a French name, none of those letters make sense.
That is also quite true.
I feel like it's either a W
or a K.
W or a K.
I think I'm gonna be a rebel and say Q.
A Q, okay. So we got a Q, we got a W or a K, which I don't know if we have anyone from Kitchener-Waterloo, but you know, that would be KW for you today. So we're gonna, what do you have? Yeah, we've got most of the answers coming in. So I'm going to give us 3 more seconds for some additional answers, and then I'm gonna close that one up, and I'm going to share the results with you. And K was the most popular response, but Sarah, you were correct. It is Q.
No.
And I would like to share with you who that person is in case anyone, actually, I don't know if anyone, so I'm going to point out to all of our attendees that we have a Q&A box there. So we're going to invite you to ask questions, but if anybody knows, without rushing to Google super fast, if anyone knows the name of the Canadian MP who has 5 Qs in her name. Pop it in there, and maybe I'll even find a prize for you. And in the meantime, I'm going to tell you who that is. So we're going to get rid of that poll so I can see everyone again. And it is a young lady by the name of Mumala Kakak. She is the Canadian, or the MP elected to represent the riding of Nunavut. And I think it is important to know a few things of interest. One is that she's only 25 years old. It's 25 years of age. So anybody watching this today as a prospective student, that could be you in less than 10 years. Mumala Kakak is also Inuit and is one of 10 Indigenous members of Parliament in Canada. And why am I telling you all this? Because we begin all of our events at Mount Allison by acknowledging the land that we're on. And so we are living all of the experiences, both today virtually here in the Wallace McCain Student Center, which is on unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. And here at Mount Allison, we've gone through a long experience of learning about Indigenous, and it's not gone through, we're going through a long experience about learning about our Indigenous cultures, our Indigenous past here in this province. And part of that is extending it and not just acknowledging the where we are and what we're doing, but also learning a bit more and putting that into action. So telling you the name of an MP is not exactly that action, but I encourage you to look up, let me see, I'll pop her name. I hope I spell it right, I'm pretty sure I will. I will pop her name into the chat box so that everybody can see it, and then you can learn all about what this extraordinary young woman is doing. So on that note, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the 3 extraordinary young women who are joining all of us today for this wonderful session about orientation, not just orientation for everyone, but also for all of our incoming international students and our new students who will be availing themselves of the services of the Meehan Center. And so speaking of the Meehan Center, I might like to you, Sarah, to start off our round of introductions by telling us who you are and where you came from and what your role is as the chair of the Meehan Center Orientation.
Sure. So my name is Sarah. I'm going into my 3rd year at Environmental Sciences. I'm from Montreal originally, but I've been in Sackville for the past couple of months working. And so I'm the Meehan Center Orientation Chair. And basically what that is we help students who are registered with the Meehan Center, which I will talk a little bit more on a bit later, adjust to Mount A life and university life in a bit more of a calm setting. Traditionally, it would be done 3 days prior to orientation week, but since our circumstances have changed, it's going to be more focused on helping students transition into university life, especially this new university life that we are going to be experiencing. For those of you who don't know what the Meehan Center is, it's Mount A's award-winning accessibility center. So whether you have a learning disability, a physical disability, you struggle with mental health illness, or actual illnesses, chronic illnesses, the Meehan Center is here at Mount Allison to help students gain access to extra resources to help them succeed in their classes. I personally am registered with the Meehan Center for Learning Disabilities, and it has been one of the most helpful and wonderful resources on campus, in my personal opinion. If you aren't registered and want to know more, I'll pop up an email in the chat if I can't, I think I can, and you can ask questions about how to become a Meehan Center student and the processes, and if you have general questions about it. So that's me, that's what I do.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Before we get to Shannon and Christy, I'll just comment as well so everyone sees that there's a Q&A box down there on the bottom of your screen. You do not have to wait to ask your questions. So after we finish the introductions, we will open the floor to, this is basically what today is for your questions and answers. So if Sarah, Shannon, Christy are saying things that you're curious about with regard to these orientation events that are coming up, then pop that question in and we will get to those very shortly. So on that note, Shannon, why don't you tell us a bit about what you have planned and what your story is as well.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Shannon. I am from Bermuda, so I am an international student. I'm going into my 4th year, majoring in geography and environment, and I am the International Orientation Chair for this year. So basically, international orientation is just what it sounds like. It's for incoming international students. We have our own orientation before the university one, just so everyone can get to know each other. Because honestly, moving to a new country and starting university at the same time can be a little intimidating and a lot, especially if you're coming by yourself. Like me, I came by myself, didn't have any of my family, didn't know anyone in Canada at all. So it was really nice to get to know people who were going through the same thing as me before everyone else got here. So that's mainly what international orientation is about. We give you resources to help you deal with things like culture shock, help get you on like a health plan and like all those logistical things. So yeah, that's international orientation.
Thank you, Shannon. And I'll put you on the spot for a moment. You mentioned culture shock. Just out of curiosity, is there something that sticks out to you as being the most shocking element of arriving in Sackville for the first time from Bermuda?
Oh my. I think, well, Bermuda's really, really small. I don't know if there's any other Bermudians on the call right now, but Bermuda is a very small island. So Sackville is also very small. So that wasn't that big of a shock for me. I guess it was in Bermuda, you know everyone. You always say like good morning, good afternoon, like hello. Doesn't matter if you know them personally or not. So when I first arrived in Sackville, I was walking downtown and just saying like good morning, good morning, good morning to everyone. And all the people who like live here were looking at me like I was crazy. Like, I don't know you. Like, why are you talking to me? So that was probably the first thing I noticed. But yeah.
I've been here for a long time and I still say hello to people. So maybe they think that I'm weirder than I'm aware. Anyone who wants to come, I encourage, please keep saying hello. It's what makes us good. So thank you so much, Shannon.
Yeah.
Christy, why don't you tell us what you're up to and also where you've come from and what we need to know?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name's Christy. I'm a I'll be entering my fourth year studying psychology and English in the fall at Mount A. I'm from St. John's, Newfoundland, which is where I am now. I came home for a week since the Atlantic bubble opened. And I'm your university orientation chair. So that means that my job this summer is to prepare and plan for an orientation that equips incoming students with the tools they need to succeed and have fun at Mount A. Even in a COVID-19 reality, this includes allowing you guys to form connections with upper year students, faculty, and staff. It also includes education on the 4 pillars of orientation, and that's equity, diversity, inclusion, mental health, consent, and alcohol substance harms reduction. And even though orientation is going to look a lot different this year, I'm lucky to have the support of Adam Christie, who's the director of student life, admissions, as well as the MASU staff, and Sarah and Shannon, who are amazing. So yeah, that's my little bit.
Fantastic. So thank you to all of you and as well to all of our attendees here today. So again, the questions are starting to come in, and I think before we get into that, and please keep the questions coming, but before we get into that, can we, maybe I'll look to you, Christy, to start. Actually, I should be looking at the other ones if we're gonna go chronologically. Can we talk a little bit about the timing? Insofar as we know today, obviously things are still a little bit in flux. But the timing of the events, beginning with the Mean Center and the International Center. So maybe Shannon, do you want to start with what you expect is the timing for students coming to international orientation?
Yeah, so because of all the travel restrictions and they're changing all the time, we are planning on having international orientation all online, so it's accessible to everyone. Whether you're planning on coming to Sackville or staying at home for the semester. Right now, I think, do you want me to say like a move-in date? Is that what we're?
Yeah, that's fine. Yesterday I discussed move-in dates
Okay.
on this webinar, so they're out. And actually, and all the students have hopefully, if you're a student attending this and you received an email today that tells you when you can arrive on campus, can you raise your hands? Got a, yeah, okay, good. We've got some. Well, we have a lot, 23, 20, 30. Okay, yes. So they're going out. So you can, yes, we go right ahead.
Okay, so for people who need to self-isolate, so if you're coming internationally, you have to quarantine for 14 days. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the date is August 14th and 15th.
That's correct.
For moving into residence. So yeah, if you can come, that's fantastic. If you can't, no worries. We will be having all our resources. We're online. Almost all of the orientation things for international orientation will be like virtual. So yeah, we want to help keep everyone engaged. And I know it's, can we arrive on either day? I'm just looking at a,
Oh, yeah.
yes, you can. So either the 14th or the 15th, but I think if you arrive on the 14th, you have to stay in quarantine until the 30th.
Yes.
Is what I was told. Yeah.
So it doesn't matter if you arrive on the 14th or the 15th. If you arrive on the 15th, it'll be 14 days. If you arrive on the 14th, it'll be 15 days.
15 days, yeah.
Should have thought about that one before I said it out loud. But that is correct nonetheless. Perhaps more confusing than it was before, but there you go. So, and Sarah, is it similar schedule then for students who will be attending main center orientation?
Yeah, so since there is no concept of arriving early for pre-orientation or for international orientation this year, me and center students will also be asked if they're moving into residence to arrive on the 14th or the 15th if they require to self-isolate. If they're coming from within the Atlantic bubble and do not need to self-isolate, it should be September 3rd till 4th.
3rd and 4th, yeah.
3rd till 4th, so yeah. So it's going to be structured a bit differently this year, but yeah.
And so, yeah, September 3rd and 4th are the move-in days for anyone who does not require self-isolation, which we hope will be, fingers crossed, almost everybody, or as few people as possible, just because we don't want to put you in a room for 14 days if we don't have to. But Christy, when do you anticipate that the regular orientation events will start to take place?
So, like Sarah and Shannon said, it's going to look a lot different this year. Like those events that do happen in person will be more small scale, and we are putting an emphasis on virtual events. And those will be starting around mid-August. So when people start to arrive to self-isolate, and even if you aren't here self-isolating, you can still like tune into those virtual events. Sorry, lost my train of thought. But yeah, the in terms of like the period of kind of welcome events that can occur in person, we're thinking September 5th to 7th will be that. And I just want like students who will have to self-isolate, I want you to like rest assured that like you will have things to do, even if it's like in a virtual setting. Yeah, and we're all working together on that, Sarah, Shannon, and I. Yeah.
Splendid. I think that you'll get support from many other members of the university community as well. Yeah. We all, well, I suppose, well, no, you went home during the bubble, but I did 14 days when I came back to Sackville. A lot of us have had to spend 14 days in a confined space at some point in time, and so we know what the experience is like, and we hope to make it as positive as possible. But again, I guess there's a lot of opportunity when you have a lot of people around you who are going through the same circumstance, and so you'll be able to network, and I think that's something that you guys will be working with the students as well to connect them during that time. So that's splendid. So we do have quite a few questions coming up, and I encourage all of you, just keep asking your questions. Don't be shy, because if you have that question, someone else probably does too, and don't wait for each other to ask that question. So I know this was touched on a little bit, but if I can just go back to you first, Shannon. Carolina asks, how will orientation work for students who definitely will not be able to be on campus in the fall semester?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So for international orientation, we are trying to stay away from having like orientation in-person events. Those are more going to be like a welcome to campus. International meeting is not going to be, so if you cannot come to Sackville or like you can't come to Canada at all, that's no problem. We're going to be having all of our orientation events for everyone online. So if you are in the International Orientation Facebook page, I posted a thing yesterday. We're having our first summer session, so our pre-orientation event tomorrow, just as like an introductory welcome to all the incoming international students. So if you are staying at home, you're not going to be missing any in-person events that would be beneficial to orientation overall. So you don't have to worry about that. Yeah.
Great. And just staying with this theme of international orientation for the moment, Ashni asks, does international orientation cover the basics of getting set up? So some of the 4 points included here: application for social insurance number, getting a bank account, getting a SIM card, and getting medical insurance.
Yes, it does. So hold on, I'm trying to collect my thoughts. Yeah, so we go over like immigration, like coming into Canada, the forms you'll need and things like that, especially with COVID going on. Because I was in Ontario earlier, and just to come from Ontario to New Brunswick was a whole thing. So we're gonna go over things like that, the forms you'll need, support from the school, documents and things like that. We have a webinar on setting up a bank account, and the SIN number things, and like how to work in Canada and everything like that. So there'll be more information on that. We haven't picked a day to go over those things, but we'll definitely be going over those throughout the summer before school starts.
Great, thank you so much. I do want to take a moment because there's a question here on the screen that's quite appropriate for this, but someone asked if a recording of this webinar and the past ones that we've done are available online, and they are. And I'm going to put the link up so that everybody can see it. So it's there in the Q&A box. Yesterday we had the one about residents. I will know that that one has not been posted yet, so there's usually a bit of a delay before we get them up. But you can check out all of these past sessions and find out the other information we've been sharing as well along the way. So I'm going to look down to a question here about, and I think this one will probably come back to me. Is it possible to arrive on campus earlier than the 4th of September, as I'm already in the Atlantic bubble? So our move-in dates are the 3rd and the 4th, which actually that's when we moved in before COVID happened. That's what the date was. We looked at many different dates and we ended up right back where we started. So residents will not be open on September 2nd for students who are already in bubble, so already in Atlantic Canada or any other place that may not need to self-isolate upon arrival. But the first day to move in will be the 3rd of September if you are not self-isolating. So keep that in mind as well. And then I have another comment here. I have not received the move-in day email yet. If you could send me an email, and I will put my email address right here. It's very easy, mark@mta.ca. Send me a message there, and we'll make sure that we get that information out to you and figure out why you do not already have it. It did just go out this morning, so it is fresh information for most of you, but good to have there as well. Sarah, I'm going to look to you for a moment here. So before you can go to the Meehan Center orientation, you have to, of course, be registered with the Meehan Center, I assume. Yeah. So can you talk a little bit about what, insofar as you're aware, what sort of official diagnosis or documentation is required to get that access?
Yeah, so for the Meehan Center, you are required to have proof of a disability or mental health illness. So as using myself as an example, I have ADHD and anxiety. I have a full assessment that is up to date by a neuropsychologist who basically says Sarah is someone who struggles with ADHD and anxiety, therefore she needs accessibility to the following accommodations. My accommodations include time and a half on midterms and exams. So I get 1.5 added on to times the amount times the hours that would take to write the exam. I also have access to a separate room, to a quieter environment, which we do have in the Meehan Center. We have testing rooms upstairs, and exams, if you need to, can be written on computers if you struggle with brain to hand coordination, or putting thoughts down like in order, which I do utilize. I utilize the computer if I have to write essays for exams. We also require that if you have a physical disability, proof of the physical disability, such as doctor's notes, are also needed. Because I mostly have experience with learning disabilities and mental health disabilities or illnesses. I know for that, you do need proper assessments from professionals, so from psychologists or psychiatrists or a doctor. And that will help you access all the resources that you can get through the Meehan Center. You can also start the process of getting assessed through the Meehan Center. They can help you figure out if you suspect you need the Meehan Center. You've gone your entire life and you realize there's stuff like this out here to help you, and you've never, had the chance to be assessed. The Meehan Center can help you get there and reach that assessment, so that hopefully you can get access to the proper help that you need. But you do need proof of disability if you would like to be registered as a Meehan Center student.
I think that is a very comprehensive answer to that question. So thank you so much. I also have a comment here. I cannot find information on the Canada-wide bubble that was spoken of yesterday. Where can we follow updates on this? You will not find information about that Canada-wide bubble anywhere. If you Google the date July 17 and the name of an Atlantic province, you may come across a news article mentioning that perhaps some information will be coming by then. That's the expectation that we've also been given, but because it's not actually a thing yet, you won't find very much discussion about it in the news. So really, just in our case here in this province, one of the places, obviously, if you go to mta.ca/health alerts and /fall 2020 as well, we have updated information. But a lot of that also comes to is the government's decision to make about this information. So for anything that pertains to the provincial government, so when I say the government in this case, I'm talking about the government of New Brunswick, because each province in Canada establishes its own guidelines for how things will operate. And so their site, I will also put up here in the Q&A box, is just gnb.ca/coronavirus. They'll have updated information. And normally the CBC posts the information before the government even gets up to it. So I've heard many times this date of July 17th floated. Nobody promises anything will happen on July 17th, but we're expecting to have some information thereafter. And let's have a quick look here as well. Looking at you here, Shannon, I am a Canadian citizen. I am a Canadian citizen, but the question asker is a Canadian citizen. However, I have never lived in Canada and feel like some of the international orientation qualities will be useful for me. Is there any way that I can participate in the international orientation?
Of course you can. Just, can I put my email address somewhere and then they can?
Absolutely. Are you able to type, like I think in the Q&A box, do you have the type answer? Is it there?
Yes.
Yeah, so go ahead and you can type your email address in that inbox.
Okay.
It's not an inbox, in that box. And presumably, Shannon, they can contact you and say, I would like to be included in international orientation?
Yeah, and that's for everyone too. I know in the past we've had Canadian students, but who have moved a lot or, I don't know, lived somewhere else for the past 2 years before they started university. So you don't have to be not from Canada to attend international orientation. So yeah, I'll put my email address in there and then message me and we can set you up.
I know we've had many Canadian students over the years for a variety of reasons participate in international orientation. I think you said found it to be a very useful activity in which to participate as well.
Yeah.
Just take a note as well. if you have questions, I'll just ask you to put them in the Q&A box. I see some things coming up in the chat, and they go by so quickly that I miss them, whereas in the Q&A box, it's a little bit easier. I will know, I see some conversation about, and there's a question here from Galen in the Q&A box. So do we know if parents will be able to come and drop students off? And I know that's something that's continuing to evolve. So Christy, would you be able to give sort of what would be an update as of today with regard to what we think will happen with parents and anyone else who might be joining students to drop them off?
So as for, like, I guess it would be different whether you are someone who has to self-isolate or whether you're coming from within the bubble or you don't have to isolate for whatever reason. I'm pretty sure it would make sense for you to be able to have your parents drop you off if you weren't isolating and your parents had also not been outside of the bubble. But in terms of isolating, I would assume that if your parents are bringing you from out of the bubble, let's just assume it's a bubble, maybe it'll be like a bigger bubble by then, but that they would also be technically have to isolate. Does that make sense? So I think that's what the problem is right now that they're trying to work out, is like, how are we going to accommodate people who need to get here, but like without having their parents or family or friends who are bringing them like come in contact. So I don't really have an answer for you, but I do think that if you aren't isolating, it should be fine.
Right, so we're still waiting for, again, that's something that will be dictated to us by GNB, by the government of New Brunswick. And we'll give certainly parents and anyone who wishes to will be able, well, I shouldn't say anyone who wishes to because there's certain guidelines around that too, but at least at a minimum, parents will be able to accompany students to Sackville. Whether the question of entering residence with the students is a separate question that's still being addressed. As I believe was alluded to in one of the messages I saw this morning, we are looking into establishing a welcome center as well that will serve as sort of a meeting point and have a number of other functions in that sense. So stay tuned, basically, is the short answer for a lot of that information. I also see a lot of questions and a lot of comments, and I'm trying to catch up, but there's a lot on here. So I'll just take a moment just to talk briefly about that move-in sequence again, and the requirement for self-isolation where it exists. So self-isolation is, as of today, required for anyone who does not live in the 4 Atlantic provinces. There is an expectation that there's a strong possibility that that will change. But regardless of what is the case on the day when in August and September, when it is time to arrive, if you are required to self-isolate as a student, you may come directly to New Brunswick by whatever means you arrive. You go straight into your residence room, and there you will stay for 14 days. And we will take care of you in the meantime. But that, if you are being dropped off by a parent in that situation, that parent will not be coming in with you, as far as I'm aware. I will speak a bit to what happened in March when students left, on the understanding that it does not necessarily apply to August and September when students arrive. But there was sort of an understanding earlier that parents who were coming in to get students out of residence in March were allowed to be in the province for up to 24 hours. Maintaining basically this, so don't go shopping, don't go anywhere, remain isolated, get a hotel if you need to for the night, because if you're coming from the west, it's 4+ hours across the province in each direction to get here, so it's not feasible to ask you to drive in, move out, or drive out and get all that done. That said, that's what happened before. That has not been confirmed for this coming move-in session, but I think that there will be a reasonable arrangement made in that sort of nature. At the same time, what I need to stress is if you and your parents, if you decide not to self-isolate in your residence room, and you decide to come with parents, with friends, with whoever, to self-isolate in New Brunswick, the same principle still applies. You and whoever comes in with you, as soon as you enter New Brunswick, you need to go to the place that you are self-isolating, and you all need to stay there for 14 days. So I know some of you have discussed the option of renting a cottage and we're going to stay there for 14 days. That's fine if you stay there for 14 days. You can't go for a hike, you can't go to the store, you can't get a coffee. You can get these things brought to you, but you need to make arrangements proactively. And I know that there's been, not just with students coming in, but lots of people coming to the provinces for different reasons have said, well, can we do this, can we do that? No. And we're not making those rules. Those are the principles of self-isolation. And those of you who were here on yesterday's webinar will know that I briefly mentioned that we have a very small outbreak in the region right now that has been tied back to somebody not self-isolating as they said they would when arriving from, in this case, the United States. And so the provincial governments have been making fairly clear that they're going to step up enforcement of the self-isolation. So all that to say, for students who wish to come and self-isolate with us, we will make that happen. We're already established and ready to go with that. For if anyone else wishes to come, we really encourage you to check the government guidelines and also to check in with us as well if you have any questions or uncertainty prior to making any plans, or especially before you book a non-refundable Airbnb for 14 days to make sure that your plan is really going to work. And again, this is an important one for everything we say today. Bear in mind, again, the government is reassessing and reevaluating these guidelines as time goes on. We are still more than 5 weeks away from move-in for self-isolation students and more than 7 weeks away for the rest. 8 weeks, I believe. So a lot of things could change in that time. So it's really important during this entire period that you stay up to date. We will keep you as up to date as possible, but know that what you read on July 8th is correct on July 8th, but may change on July 9th or August 15th, etc. So we're trying to make sure that we get you as much information as we can as we get it as well. Of course, as we all appreciate, the situation is evolving a lot. And I'm talking a lot, so let's get back to some more questions. A very quick one here for you, Christy. Thelma asked, are classes still starting on the 8th of September, or has that changed?
I'm pretty sure they are. Yes.
Yes.
I think syllabus week is going to be, it's either going to be all online or it'll be such a way that if you can't make it to campus in time for that, then you can still like there won't be repercussions for that. Yeah, you'll be fine. Like syllabus week is gonna be very flexible, very accommodating for everyone, because that's gonna be, there's probably still gonna be people like trickling in, just like, getting things sorted out, because obviously like you could expect some kind of delays with everything going on. So
and sorry, Christy, if I can just back up a little bit, because I don't think I knew when I came. What's a syllabus?
Oh, what is a syllabus? So a syllabus is kind of the guideline, the structure of your course. And I call the first week of classes syllabus week, because that's the week that you generally are just familiarizing, your course instructor is familiarizing you and your classmates with the structure of the course, the expectations, the grade breakdown, is that what it's called? The breakdown of your grade, some deadlines, stuff like that. So yeah, that's actually a good question. I guess I didn't really know what a syllabus was when I came here either.
And actually, although I attended this school some time ago, it's the first time I've ever heard anyone call it syllabus week, which I'm sure you all do.
Yeah, so I don't know if that's the official thing. I guess it's technically the first week of classes, but it's going to be more about familiarizing everyone, getting everyone adjusted.
So definitely we will have events happening on campus during that week, but I think what Christy's mostly trying to say is if you are not able, if you're late in arriving for some reason, that we will be able to accommodate that. Bearing in mind, if you require self-isolation, you will need to meet the self-isolation requirements. And I guess, I'm sorry to keep returning to this, but it does occur to me, I left one piece of that puzzle out. If you do not make it in time for our self-isolation, I must remind you, you will be required to self-isolate somewhere else. And that necessarily also means at your own expense. So we will, obviously a student can arrive and on campus once classes have begun at any time, as long as you have satisfied the self-isolation requirement. And Caitlin asks, if we need to self-isolate, will it be in our new room or will we have to move into our room after self-isolation? And my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that we are planning to move students into their own room for self-isolation. I think that's still the plan. So you won't hopefully have to move twice. Again, plans could change, but as of right now, every version of the plans I have seen has indicated that you will be in your room from the beginning as well. Someone also asked, who can I email for help with that? And to thanks. If that person could let me know what it is you're looking for help with, and we can help you out with that. So just pop another question in there. Lindsay asks, will we be required to wear a mask on campus for any amount of time after move-in? Do we have any volunteers for that one? All right, Sarah.
Right now, buildings are structured where you have to wear a mask if you are traveling through the hallways of the building. There's currently going to be work done on seeing how turnover between classes is going to work. But working in a building on campus right now, I have to wear a mask when I travel through the hallways at all times. I also have to wear a mask if I cannot stand 2 meters away from someone. So if I'm working in the lab and my lab mates are not 2 meters away from me, I must wear a mask. So currently, yes, you must wear a mask.
I think if you had an accessibility issue where you couldn't wear a mask, that would be an exception. But yeah.
And so case in point, I used this example yesterday as well. I am in a university building right now, in a public space. I have my mask ready, but there's nobody within 6 feet of me because the building is closed. So I am okay at the moment. But if I were to move around the building or move around campus, then I should be prepared to have the mask ready. One of the comments I will make about the mask, I've traveled in a lot of places where face masks were common before COVID-19. And I hate the mask. And yet, one of the really great things about Sackville is because of the population density or lack thereof, even when campus is full, it's been really easy to get in the mask habit because I have to have it ready most of the time. But the amount of time it's actually on my face is pretty limited at this point, and I expect will sort of stay that way too. So, and a lot of the time it really, we know why we wear the mask, but it's a really great way of demonstrating courtesy and respect to those around us. As I think it's becoming increasingly clear, we know that, the young, I was gonna say our age group, your age group, can contract this as easily as anyone else and is maybe less likely to suffer severe impacts, but you can just as easily pass it on to our neighbors. Anyone who's living in Harper Hall or Campbell, you'll be able to see the nursing home out your window. So we're going to have to be in a respectful place. And I know that when I go into the supermarket here and people see that I have the mask on, it's just appreciated. And our store is not that big. So within 10 minutes, I'm back outside again and we're good to go. So I think we're adjusting to that mask reality pretty quickly and pretty comfortably as well. What happens, asked Trevor, if I drive to New Brunswick from British Columbia? Can I drive straight to Mount Allison? And I think I will take this question. So right now in Canada, only 3 provinces restrict entry into the province. One of them is New Brunswick. So you do need to, so for all students who will be coming from outside of whatever the bubble is at that point, we will be providing you with the appropriate documentation because if you're coming from out of province, you may be required to show that you are enrolled at Mount Allison to be able to enter the province. In fact, not only are you enrolled in Mount Allison, but that you have a place to live and so forth. So we will make sure that you have the appropriate documentation. As of right now, every province west of here does not restrict entry. The province of Manitoba does have the 14-day self-isolation rule. So if you may pass through Manitoba, but you're not encouraged to spend too long there. And of course that may change as well as time goes on. But the other provinces, your movement is free. We simply ask you if you're going to travel from, say, Vancouver Island, Trevor, to our campus, to be mindful of the community that you're coming to, and even though the restrictions might not be there, to continue to observe the appropriate physical distancing requirements and to minimize your risk before entering into our community and making sure that everybody is safe and sound along the way. What other questions do we have here to look for? Will there be a date established? I should probably read them before I read them out loud, but let's hope it's a good one. Now last, will there be a date established as a deadline for waiting for news about the Canadian bubble with regards to moving plans? For example, if there's no Canadian bubble announced by this date, students who have had to self-isolate can still move in on the 14th or 15th. Okay, I think I got your question there. So again, this bubble talk is not our decision, it's the government's decision. The government has floated the idea that maybe by the end of next week we'll hear something, but that has not been provided to us as a deadline. So we are advising as of today, everyone should plan to, everyone who's outside of the Atlantic provinces should plan for self-isolation. But if you're booking travel, in particular from within Canada, we actually suggest right now you don't book travel until the government makes an announcement next week, if they make an announcement next week. And we don't anticipate that there should be any adverse effects. We're not expecting airfares to shoot through the roof. So wait for the government guidance. I'm fairly certain, I know they've said, and I've said a couple times here already, July 17th has been floated as a date. So if you haven't heard something by then, or let's say shortly thereafter, as the month rolls on, you definitely need to be making plans for August 14th or 15th. So hopefully that, if the government's talking about deciding by 17, that should give us about 4 weeks to make plans, which should be sufficient for most people. So if there's any question about that, just let us know as well. And someone asked, what happens if a Canada-wide bubble forms partway through our quarantine? That's a good hypothetical question. Christy, you want to take that one?
I'm pretty sure that there were people I knew who traveled on July 2nd within the bubble and still had to isolate, just because I guess, and I don't know, maybe it'll be different this time if they like expand it, but I'm pretty sure you still have to. But I don't think it's something that was really considered. And then I think just for the sake of safety, GNB was just like, or the Atlantic provinces were just like, yeah, just do your isolation just to be safe. If you, if the date comes along before your 2 weeks are up, just continue with it. But I don't know, it might change.
Yeah. So we'll have to wait and see a little bit on that, and that's, a lot of this, of course, depends on the progress of the battle against the virus in various locations. I think anything is possible. I think this particular situation is quite unlikely. I think by the time school starts, we will either have that Canada-wide bubble, Canada, or we will not. So I don't expect we'll be getting a decision in that time frame. But we will wait and see, and so stay tuned for more details. And so staying on this bubble talk, so we do have an anonymous question here. To be clear, if we are in the Atlantic bubble, our parents can drop us off. They just aren't allowed to come inside the residence. If they stay in New Brunswick, will we be allowed to see them or leave the campus with them to pick up final touches for rooms?
As of now, I think this is like definitely not like for sure, but I'm pretty sure like it's just that you can't have visitors within the residence. I think you're allowed to leave and do whatever you want, you want once you're off campus. But obviously with that comes like an amount of responsibility to respect the rules and everything. So if your parents, like I wouldn't leave the res and go hang out with people who were in self-isolation, for example, or who I knew might have come in contact with someone. But I think that that's okay as of now.
The reality is, for any student, once you move into your residence, and if you're not self-isolating, you are allowed to leave it. Mm-hmm. And so if your parents are in town, if they're still just down the street because they just dropped you off, you can absolutely, as far as we are aware, go and see them, or anyone else. Like as soon as you move in is when you start to establish those practices and the culture of observing, physical distance and whatever other measures are necessary to mitigate the spread of the virus. So it's entirely up to you as long as your parents have been not subject to self-isolation, as Christy mentioned, then there should be no problem there as well. Question here about the timing, and maybe this will be for you, Christy. For people who are taking online courses over the summer, and then, I don't know, are any of the three of you taking a course this summer by any chance?
No, but I sort of TA one.
Okay, so maybe I'll let you decide who will answer this, but if you're taking an online course over the summer and the exam is to be taken in September, how does that work?
They are usually done online, I believe, the exams.
Yes, and I also tried to follow up with this for details, anonymous asker of questions. But my understanding as well, I think you'll see that any of these self-directed learning courses are scheduled to have an exam on September 5th, which is the Saturday of that move-in period. I believe that if you are ready to write the exam before September 5th, in many cases, that is the last possible day to write, but that you do not have to wait until the 5th. So be in contact with your instructor, because we do acknowledge that falls right during that period when you're trying to do a lot of other things too. So if there's an opportunity to do it on a date that's better for you, then we will certainly be looking into that as well. And I see someone again looking for someone to email regarding the mean center, which I believe we'll just put in here. It is just me at mta.ca, correct?
No, it's accessibility at mta.ca.
Thank you.
I put it in the chat up at the top, so you can copy paste that email and send it in, or you could email me and I could direct you to people.
Perfect.
And I'll type in my email, I guess.
All right, I'm gonna jump down a little bit here. I see a few questions. I see a lot of questions, and that's great. I'm gonna try and tap into the expertise of the three orientation chairs who are here with us and really stick to the orientation specific questions. And then any questions that are left over at the end, I'll try and address them myself. But if, again, we're a few weeks out, but Ray's question here, and I guess this question is sort of for all of you. Can you give sort of, in the best estimation of what's possible today, a general overview of what kind of activities are planned for orientation? And whoever would like to start.
I can start.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so the events we have planned for international orientation are actually starting tomorrow, 10 a.m. Sackville time, ADT time. So every Thursday for the rest of the month of July, we are having what we call summer sessions. So we'll be going over immigration, culture shock, and how to get involved at Mount A, or like how to make the most of your time at Mount A, either online or in person, just to help keep everyone engaged in the lead up to the start of classes. And yeah, so we're having lots of those events. The International Orientation also has a team of international orientation facilitators who will be in contact with the incoming students. So we want to try to plan IO buddies. So it's going to be like small groups of incoming students and like 1 or 2 facilitators to get everyone acquainted. Since a lot of people won't be able to come to campus, we want to make sure that you have like a support group in your transition to university in a different country, even if you aren't in Canada. I think that is really important also. So, and just lots of like mini meet and greets and stuff in the lead up to orientation. So that's what we're planning.
In a lot of ways, I get the sense that there's a lot of actual benefits to the way that we're forced to sort of rejig things here, because I feel like a lot of students are going to be making connections before they even arrive on campus, be it virtually or physically. So it does sound like there's some pluses there for sure.
For sure.
Sarah, Christy, other thoughts you wanted to add on that topic?
I can. In terms of, we're kind of doing something similar to Shannon, trying to work on things throughout the summer, but also like don't want to overlap too much on what the MASU or admissions are doing. So we're really trying to plan on stuff starting in mid-August. And one of the things I'm working on now, which I'm really excited for, is an orientation podcast. Well, actually, I didn't even mention this, but the theme of this year's orientation is Together Wherever. I'll put it in the chat. And so the podcast is called Together Wherever as well, and we're gonna have different episodes focusing on different topics. Some will be kind of more related to our pillars, so diversity and inclusion. We're going to do an episode hosted by the Black Students Union. We'll also have stuff like Mount A memories, kind of like maybe some alumni talking about their experiences at Mount A. So I'm really excited for that. We're also working with a third party to make a platform for incoming students to connect with upper year orientation leaders. So that includes me and Center orientation navigators, international orientation facilitators, orientation committee, orientation team, and MASU exec. So covering everything. So that'll be up soon. And we use the guidebook app, which we're working on now, as kind of a landing spot for scheduling activities, including the center orientation activities, international orientation activities. And then we're also going to be kind of having an orientation Moodle page with different categories, kind of like some more entertainment based and some more education based. And that's mostly it for like our virtual stuff. So the podcast, the connecting to upper year students, Moodle, and guidebook. And then we're working on planning some in-person stuff. It's only been recently that we've kind of figured out that we can do any in-person stuff. So we're kind of trying to collaborate with the town of Sackville on some of that, as well as facilities and like other groups at the university. But fingers crossed, we'll be able to do Shinerama as well, which is our fundraiser for cystic fibrosis research. That's another activity. And that's kind of, if that can't happen in person, it'll also occur virtually as well.
Is there anything to add?
Just that me and Center orientation will most likely be entirely virtual. Not much will be happening in person. It's never really been an activities-based orientation, like doing like games and stuff. It's mostly been about getting resources on where you can get help, how to ask for help, how to use our systems and our programs that we have. So those will still be happening. They'll be posted most likely on the Moodle. Join the Facebook page. There'll be an email going out with links to everything real soon. There's an Instagram too, if you want to join that.
Shannon, I have a student here as well, sorry, who's an international student, but already inside of the Atlantic bubble, so not requiring self-isolation.
Mm-hmm.
Would this student move in at the same time as Canadian students, or would they move in sooner? When should they expect to arrive?
Yeah, so I'm assuming if you're already in the Atlantic bubble and you don't have to self-isolate at all, then you just arrive with everyone else who doesn't have to self-isolate in residence.
So any of the events for international orientation that precede September 3rd, they're all virtual, correct?
Yes, they are, yeah.
So we're safe on both fronts there.
University orientation stuff as well, like any programming that happens before non-isolating students come back will be virtual. So whether you're on campus or isolating or somewhere else, like you can still tune in.
Perfect.
And no important information is done in person. It's always going to have a virtual aspect to it, so no one misses out.
Mm-hmm.
So the virtual is for everyone, and then the in-person things we'll do as much as we can for those who are able to be there. But if you can't be there, then you don't have to worry about it. So perfect. I do have a question here about, is there any expectation of travel restrictions being lifted for international students in the near future? Because there's been a lot of confusion as to whether or not we should take ourselves out of residence. We don't have any expectation that those travel restrictions will be lifted, and we will be communicating directly with any affected students very promptly. about what your options are. We're going to work with you to find the best solution based on your situation of where you are and when we think you might be able to arrive. So you should stay tuned for communication because we're hoping to get everyone. We would like to know for ourselves, but we'd also like you to know what the full plan is by the end of this month, so that you can make a final plan. But as of this time, given the situation, especially outside of this country, in a number of different countries around the world being quite challenging, we have not, in the same way that earlier I kept saying, we've been told maybe July 17th we'll be opening up inside of the country. Nobody has said anything about when we might be opening to other places. And that, at this point, is a federal government decision as well. So that's at a whole different level too. Just sliding down, are we going to be able to use the gym and the pool? I'm actually not sure.
Still being decided on, I think.
Idea.
Up in the air.
And sorry, someone asked, I said earlier, what syllabus? And someone asked, what's the Atlantic bubble? So the Atlantic bubble are the 4 Atlantic provinces of Canada, Newfoundland and Labrador, Prince Edward Island, Nova Scotia, and New Brunswick, who have collectively decided that their residents, may travel between the 4 provinces seemingly without restrictions. Just you have to wait and show some forms. Anyone? Oh yeah, Kirsty, you've crossed a provincial boundary since that time, but you did it through an airport, right?
Well, I had to drive from Sackville into Halifax. So I crossed the New Brunswick, Nova Scotia border, and they just kind of waved me on through. But then then I got to the airport, I flew, and then when I arrived in Newfoundland, I had to sign a form and show IDs showing that like I was a permanent resident of the bubble. Mm-hmm. So yeah, at some point you will have to show documentation.
I have to show my lease because I have only Quebec ID, and that is iffy here.
But again, for all students coming to Sackville, we will make sure that you have whatever documentation you require to enter the province or the country as the circumstance may be. Very quickly, by the way, I just want to make sure, because it's already 3 o'clock, that nobody in my panel needs to depart. You certainly may at any moment, but I'll just try and race through a few quick questions here. Will the dining hall be open? Yes. Will there be some sort of virtual activities or extracurricular fair? Sarah, who wants to talk about that one?
Yes. So every year we have the MASU runs a clubs and societies fair in collaboration with the orientation team. And so we're working on adapting that to a virtual platform. But also we have to consider that a lot of extracurriculars and clubs and stuff at Mount A this year those activities themselves will look different. And I think the MASU is working more on that than I would, but yes, some form of that will happen where you can get oriented to all the different kinds of extracurriculars, clubs, and societies at Mount A.
Great. Can you talk a little bit, I know this is tough because partly we're still formulating the itinerary for this fall, but about what activities are different this year compared to, say, last year? So what might students, I don't want to say what will they miss out on, but what might be a little bit different, both in terms of what they're not getting and what they might get that they would not otherwise have gotten?
So typically, well, almost all of our events occur in person for orientation. But I'm just bringing, in terms of university orientation, Shannon and Sarah, you can definitely speak to your stuff too, but like, there's kind of pros and cons to both, because I think that like, since our orientation is occurring mostly virtually this year, students will have a chance to acquaint themselves more with like the Moodle before they start using it. I don't know if everyone is familiar already with Moodle, but it's kind of the platform we use for courses and stuff. So it's almost like orientation is like taking place as like a course, which kind of sounds, I don't know, like it's more exciting than that.
A fun course.
A really, really fun course. And it's like, we're trying to take kind of the tradition of orientation and still hold that dear while we're making everything virtual. So for example, every year we do a mashup dance off, and that typically involves everyone gathering close together, like hundreds of people gathering together and dancing and stuff. But we're still going to do that just in a physically distant / virtual way. So, and I just want to remind people that like this is your orientation and your experience, and even if it's going to be different from previous years, like it's still just, it's going to be just as fun, just as educational, just it's just going to look a lot different, if that makes sense.
And since you weren't here for it last year, your students who are coming, you will not really know the difference anyway. And I think that's an important thing, not about what you're missing out on, but you will make your own experience, just like Christy says. And I think that's the most important part. And in a lot of ways, we've already seen a number of things here on campus that are perhaps more interesting or more innovative because of this circumstance. And I think that's going to be the case here. So I think it's actually quite exciting in a lot of ways. I do have a question as well. Are we considering providing transportation like a bus for students from the northern border of New Brunswick if parents cannot come into the province or flight options are limited? As of this point, no, we're not. And I can tell you that some of the guidance that we're getting is very clear about there's an understanding that a student cannot get from the Quebec border to Sackville on their own if they're not bringing a vehicle of their own, which most are not, or if they're not flying. So we fully expect that if a student is allowed to come into the province, that parents or other designated people will be allowed to accompany them. I have been in conversation with some people in New England, and we're not sure necessarily because of citizenship and the border being closed, if there's some differences there. And so we've talked about, it's not impossible as well if you find yourself in a situation like that to hook up online with students through our social media groups and perhaps do like a convoy from the border with Maine or something to that effect. So all that to say, we do expect parents to be able to come in. Sarah, did you have something to add?
Yeah, my parent came in with me when I moved back to Sackville, and my dad was just asked to stay less than 24 hours and not make any stops that were unnecessary. So stops at shopping centers, even though they weren't open, and restaurants. So just gas stations and bathrooms. And then he came into the province, I moved in, and then he left the next day.
And again, we'll cross our fingers that if you are coming from Ontario, Quebec, or somewhere further west, perhaps by the time you get here, your parents will be able to stay as long as they want if there's no self-isolation requirement. Well, they can stay as long as they want, as long as they're willing to self-isolate for 14 days first, but you'll probably want to get rid of them because you're at university. Someone does ask, can international orientation be later? That's 6 a.m. Pacific.
Wait, what do you mean?
Well, they're wondering if it can be later, although because I get
like
start at a different time.
The webinars.
Yeah.
Currently, we have our webinars scheduled for 10 a.m. this time, or 10 a.m. ADT. So I'm not entirely sure what time that would be where you are, but
it's a challenge. I think one of the reasons you picked that time as well, if I'm not mistaken, is because it's sort of like we have people in almost every time zone.
Mm-hmm.
So we got to pick and choose a little bit. And if you go west of 6 a.m. in the Pacific, you're in the Pacific Ocean where we don't have students. So we're not excluding as many in the middle of the night, I think. So
yeah.
And will events be recorded for students who are unable to attend?
Yeah, so we're going to be recording all our, just like we're recording like these webinars, we'll be recording our own, and then we're going to be posting them onto the International Orientation Moodle page, which will be launching very soon. So stay tuned for that one.
And a very quick sort of procedural or technical question, but we talked about Mountie Money yesterday. Can someone explain how you get $100 to start, how you put more money on your Mountie Money card?
You can do it through the bookstore, I believe, yeah.
Just go down to the bookstore, give them your card, your Mountie Money card, your student card is the same card, give them that card and they will load the money up for you. So very straightforward. Will we be emailed when orientation programming starts? Yes. You will get a full summary of all of the events that will happen. So someone else also asked the podcast. Yes, that will all be included. If you need to know something, it will arrive in your mta.ca email address. Someone asked, what is your email, Shannon? Maybe you can type that in there. If you
Me?
see. Yes.
Gosh, sure.
And in the meantime, Jamie asked, will there be any specific orientation events for diversity groups, so Black students or LGBTQ plus students, anything like that on the agenda? Maybe looking at you, Christy.
Yeah, so one of our 4 pillars, like I mentioned, is equity, diversity, inclusion. So it's really important that we have educational programming for all students about the importance of acceptance, celebrating people from different backgrounds, and community expectations. Like I said earlier, I'm working with the Black Students Union to collaborate on some orientation activities, including a podcast episode. Actually, I think we're doing more than one podcast episode together. And I'm working on some projects with Melody Petlock, who is our share educator, and she also does a lot of work with positive spaces for LGBTQ2 plus students and just communities in general. So yes.
Great. Someone asked, I assume that there will be no formal commencement ceremonies this year. Do we believe that to be, I don't know, it's funny, I had not even given that any thought until this moment. I know others on campus have.
It's not about commencement.
Commencement isn't usually like something that like the orientate, it's more
it's a university function. It's not, the orientation is run by the students for the students.
Mm-hmm.
The commencement ceremony is run by the university.
Yeah.
Typically it's in Convocation Hall, which we cannot use in its normal circumstance. So I am actually not aware of any plans. I suspect if there is any sort of formal ceremony, it will be on your screen as opposed to something that you attend where there's a parade or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so just looking up through the rest of the questions here, lots that I can answer. And I'm just wondering if you can see the remaining questions so I can let you get back to planning your respective orientation events. Any other questions that any of the 3 of you see on your screen that you wanted to address, or are you happy to leave me with any of them? And then while you look, I will tell you that yes, you will get food when you're self-isolating. It will be delivered to you, and I understand apparently we're developing an app so you can actually order your food from the app. That's what Ryan said yesterday in our housing webinar. Will I share a bathroom if we're both self-isolating, and will we still share the bathroom? I believe the understanding is if you're self-isolating, you will not be sharing a bathroom during that time. We will explain to you exactly how that works prior to you moving in, and a lot of that will depend on just how many people will actually be self-isolating, depending on the upcoming announcements that we're anticipating. So that's actually a couple of them. And there are plenty of opportunities for queer students to meet, Samantha. So thank you for that question. And we will definitely connect you because we have several active groups in that regard here on campus. We talked about the Mountie money. Actually, we're doing pretty well here, aren't we? So here's one from Roman, sorry. Will we be receiving documents and student IDs since we don't have Mount A preview day? So Mount A Preview Day used to be something that happened at the end of this month, and it's gone online. We are having the residence room preview, so you can see your residence room if you're moving into residence, and information is in your Mount A email about that. And we are not, at this time, the government does not allow us to offer campus tours. The campus is still technically closed to the public. We are eager to offer tours again. It's summer, our campus looks great, so we want people to be on it. So as soon as campus tours are available again, we will be letting you know. Student ID, do we know what the plan is yet there?
Working on it with the logistics subcommittee. I think there'll be a way for you to get it basically as soon as you come to campus or as soon as you're done self-isolation. But the things that you would need your ID for to access, if you didn't have it already, like this is the same in normal times too. If you don't already have it or whatever, like we're pretty accommodating. Like if you needed to get into meal hall and you didn't have your ID yet, then like that can get sorted out.
And I will comment, I know at least one other university in the area is doing something a little bit different where you have to submit a photo And if you don't do it by the end of this month, you don't get a card, which is a totally fine way of doing it. But if you've heard of something like that, just rest assured we are not doing that. You're not missing any deadlines. You're not going to miss out on your ID. So we will pass that information along as well. Sarah, I'm going to point you, if you can connect, and I can provide you with Suchet's, has asked a question there that I think would probably be best for you to address directly as well. So I can connect you afterward. And my colleague Krista from the International Center is saying hello as well, which we've covered some of the content there. And I will just touch briefly, and then actually we'll be done. So the different types of classes, and this is a good one. We have 3 different types of classes this year. We have scheduled with on-campus elements, which means you need to be in Sackville to be able to do this class. In most cases, I will point out there are a couple classes on the schedule that are scheduled with on-campus elements, but the professor has identified a way for students who cannot be on campus to participate in those classes. So you are welcome to reach out to the professor if you're interested in the course and you can't come to Sackville and the course is in Sackville, to see if there's an option. Janine Rogers, I believe, Arts 1991, and an interdisciplinary course, I believe, is one such example, and there's some others as well, so keep that in mind. The other 2 you'll see are scheduled online only and unscheduled online only. The online only part means that you do not need to be in Sackville. You may do it entirely online. So it can be online only. Now, if your professor is giving a class on Zoom and wants to have a few people in the classroom physically distant, that might be possible. It will not be required, but maybe some students in an online only class might have the opportunity to be in the classroom. So we have online only scheduled and unscheduled. Scheduled means that it happens at a particular time here in Sackville. And so our classes start at 8:30 in the morning. If you choose an 8:30 class and you live in Lagos, it'll be at 12:30 in the afternoon. If you live in Vancouver, it'll be at 4:30 in the morning. So we want you to keep that in mind. And that's part of the reason we have the unscheduled online only classes. This means that you can do it entirely online, and you can do it, there will be milestones to complete for the course. You'll have to stay on task, but you can do it on your own schedule. So if you are in Mumbai and we are sleeping in Sackville and you are awake and want to work on your courses, you can do that. So you can work with our academic advisors as well to plan a complement of courses that will make sure that you can succeed in those courses as well. So I do want to thank everyone. I want to thank in particular the 3 chairs for spending not just an hour, but actually a lot more time than that with us today. And for all the time that you're putting in to planning these events. I was never on the orientation committee as a student, but I certainly appreciate in a normal year how much work goes into orientation. And so this year is that work plus. And so to all 3 of you and to all the people who are supporting you, and on behalf of the students, I want to thank you, but also I want to thank the students as well. It's a lot of work to prepare for university in a normal year. And it is even more work this year as you keep pivoting to match sort of how things are evolving. So a big thank you to the students as well. Christy and Shannon and Sarah are available to answer questions for you after this. And I remind you that we will be posting these webinars online. And as well, for any questions, I didn't really introduce myself today, but I do work in the registrar's office in admissions. So any of your questions that don't relate to orientation, that are about admissions, or you just don't know where to ask me. I'll be happy to help. Mark, M-A-R-K, like on your screen, at mta.ca. Not Mark like on your screen at mta.ca, Mark at mta.ca. So thank you again to all 3 of you. Best of luck with all of your ongoing plans. And students, stay tuned to your Mount A email. As you know, we have more webinars coming up as soon as next week. And the following week, we have residence room previews coming up, so you can get inside and see what your rooms will look like for the coming year. And in the meantime, anything you need, that is why you choose a small school, so that you can reach out and get the help that you need when you need that help. So please do let us know how we may assist you. So Christy, Shannon, and Sarah, one more time, thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
And have a wonderful day and a wonderful evening, everyone. Thanks again.
Bye-bye.
Bye.